Hey, love. Happy December. And welcome to a Lazy Girl episode of Christianish. This is the podcast for women who have Bibles but need boundaries. And my name is Keshia Rice. I am a dating coach and hypnotherapist. I help women learn how to heal from their unhealthy relationship patterns and attract healthy, loving relationships. I'm calling this a lazy girl episode of Christianish because if you are listening on Spotify, Podbeam, Apple, any of those, nothing is different for you. If you are watching this on YouTube, then it is different today because all you are seeing is most likely the title screen for the podcast because I'm not recording video for this episode. And honestly, I'm not doing it because I'm just not feeling it. um, and there was a choice. You guys could either get the episode on time, so, Christianish comes out on Wednesdays, or, honestly, my birthday is Thursday, and I also have plans this weekend. So if we had waited for a video episode, God knows when you would have gotten this. But anyways, we are talking about something that I have had multiple conversations with different women, clients, friends of mine, all of that. And I feel like if it keeps coming up in conversation in my personal life, then you might need to hear it as well. And that is this idea of being found as a wife. So those of you who are a Christian are familiar with the Bible verse, Proverbs 18:22. He that findeth a wife findeth a good thing and finds favor with God. But if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, you know that one of my backgrounds is religious studies, and this concept of a man finding a wife and it being a blessing is, repeated throughout other cultures, other religious beliefs as well. It's a fairly universal idea. However, I think that a lot of people interpret it in a wrong way. And because of that, this is leading to particularly women having a very unhealthy mindset about relationships. So, again, also let me say before I get into this that I do not have notes in front of me today, and I'm really just talking off the top of my head. So this episode is going to be unusual for a lot of reasons, and I kind of just want to put it out there. I'm recording this on December 2nd, 2024, and I feel like collectively, globally, something is different in the atmosphere, in the world. So I don't know what it is. I just kind of want to say that on record that something is different. I'm sure, like, I have friends who are really into astrology and all that, and I'm sure there's some planet retrograde, or is planets that go retrograde, right? Like, yes, planets, because I always hear about Mercury, but but yeah, so I'm sure that's going to be an excuse for it. Or I don't know, if you live here in the US, a month ago was the presidential election, so things are different politically. But there is beyond that. There's a major shift happening amongst people. And I really don't know how to explain it other than that. But I kind of want to just say that on this podcast and just have that on record for, I guess, when something big happens. Okay, so back to this idea of he that findeth a wife findeth a good thing. This is one of the shifts that we need to make, particularly if you grew up in a conservative religious home. Talking about me saying that there's something different in the atmosphere and that people are making a shift. I have seen so much talk on social media about the need to decenter men, decenter romantic relationships. And I think this is one of the shifts. I think this is one of those things that is going to be not just me as a dating and relationship coach, but other women who are content creators, who are thought leaders, podcast hosts, authors, all of that. There is going to be a major shift in how women look at dating and relationships. Again, some of this is going to be practical because if you live here in the U.S., politically, changes in who the ruling political party is, who the president is going to be, are going to affect things like reproductive rights, abortion rights. There is a push towards ending no-fault divorce, things like that. And whether you agree with it or not, regardless of what political side of the spectrum you're on, there are already shifts being made in terms of there is a growing number of women who have decided, they're going on birth control for the next 4 years. Or they're doing something more permanent to take control of their reproductive health. There are women who've made the decision that they're not going to date or be in relationships at this time because they feel like it's risky giving things that they consider to be an attack on women's rights. And there are also women who have taken the exact opposite approach. There are women who feel like more than ever they need a man's protection, and they are working more diligently, being more intentional about being in a relationship. Or they feel like there's a possibility that certain policies could be passed that are more family friendly, and they're making the decision of they wanted to have a big family. They wanted to have a lot of kids, and now they feel like now is the time to make that push towards it. I hear it all personally. When women want to work with me in coaching, I've gotten so many different messages from women that run the gamut of, I feel like now is my time to get in a relationship. I've also gotten the messages of, I absolutely don't want to date or be in relationships now. How do I set boundaries? How do I keep any relationships I get into more casual? How do I talk to family and friends about the decisions that I'm making about my love life and my health and all of that? So this is all very near and dear to me and in my heart because I hear so many viewpoints about this. And I think the good thing that is coming out of this particular season, no matter what side you fall on, is I feel like women are becoming a lot more intentional in making decisions about their love life and how they want it to go and what they want it to look like. I think that, again, certain things politically in the U.S. have scared some women straight in a good way. in the sense that they are being more particular and more picky, more selective about who they choose to partner with, because they feel like if you don't get with a quote unquote good man, a high value man, however you want to phrase that, it can be really detrimental right now, more detrimental than it was before. And I would be inclined to agree with that, honestly. So this whole idea of he that findeth a wife, the key thing that I want you to take from that phrase, from that scripture, is as a woman, you're not becoming a wife when a man, quote unquote, chooses you. You're already one, right? So this idea of already being a wife, I don't mean it in terms of something superficial. You know, we talk about like planning the wedding and wearing the cute white dress and all of that. It's more about mindset. So when it comes to being a wife, what that means is that you are already at your highest potential or close to it. This means that you've already done the inner work and the healing on yourself. And I hesitate to say that because you're never done with doing healing work, inner work. Growth is a journey that lasts you your entire life. You will constantly be learning and growing, and you will constantly be healing. The difference is there are some people who go their entire lives doing none of that work, and they end up miserable for it, right? And there are some people who end up living happy, fulfilling, peaceful lives because they were not afraid to go on the journey. And they started doing a fair amount of that work before they got in partnership. They started breaking generational curses before they got in partnership. I used to always talk when I first started coaching about helping women find their purpose partners. And I feel like I should start talking more about that again. But in order to find your purpose partner, you have to know what your purpose is. You have to already be clear on what it is that you want out of life, how you want to get there, and what you want your life to look like. And you have to have a solid foundation within yourself with emotional intelligence, with confidence, with a strong sense of self-love, and a firm foundation in your own identity and knowing who you are before you can partner with someone else and help them with their purpose. Because you cannot allow yourself to get into a place where you are so caught up with what another person is doing that you lose yourself in the process. In a truly healthy relationship, the two of you both have purpose, and the two of you can work together to make each other better and help both of you achieve your purposes without one person getting lost in the sauce. So, in order to be a wife, it is important that you understand yourself first. It's important that you have a firm foundation in who you are. And it's also important that you have a firm foundation in what you need. I did a TikTok video very recently in which I was talking about how many dates you should go on with a person before you determine whether or not you actually like this person. And I was saying that if a woman is a little bit older, she has a little bit more dating experience, it doesn't take a lot of dates to really get a feel for someone. And also, honestly, before you go on in-person dates, you should have had a few phone calls first. I would also recommend a video chat or two so you can get a feel for a person before those things happen. So by the time you actually meet in person, one date's really enough because you're really just kind of confirming the vibes that you've already gotten over the phone and over video chat. You're confirming whether those are the same in person. Now, when someone is younger, so if you're Gen Z, for example, or if you are in a situation where you're kind of a late bloomer when it comes to dating, so you're older than Gen Z, but you've never been in a serious relationship, then yeah, I think it's fair to go on 2-3 dates before really ascertaining whether or not you like someone, because you're still getting in reps. You're still learning more about men. You're learning more about what it is that you need in a relationship. Learning what you want in a relationship. You may already have a love list to start with, what you think it is that you want in a partner, but trust and believe that until you actually get out there and start dating, you don't really know, right? So in order to be a wife, you have to have a little bit of dating and relationship experience behind you, because that is the only way you get truly clear on what you want and need in a partner. And I know in making that statement that some people are going to come for me because they're going to give me examples of arranged marriages. They are going to give me examples of, well, my grandmother met my grandpa in high school and they didn't know anything about love or relationships, and yet they made it work. And to that, I would say two things. One, there are so many people in situations like that are miserable. Just because people are married and they stay married for 30, 40, 50, 60 years doesn't mean they're happily married. I grew up with a father who is a minister and a mother who sometimes helped my father counsel other couples. And I used to listen in on counseling sessions. So I can guarantee you that not all those couples are happy because I spent years and years listening to some of these situations. But also, it is true that there are situations where people are in arranged marriages or they marry very young with little experience and they do end up happy. But I will tell you, those couples, the reason why they end up happy is because they still got dating experience with each other. They didn't just get married and that was it. They were very intentional about getting to know each other and getting to know themselves and still maintaining separate identities and learning about their separate identities for themselves, even though they were already in a marriage. And with that being said, it's possible, but it's a lot more difficult. If you have the blessing and the opportunity to truly get to know yourself, develop self-love routines, self-care routines before you get married, you need to do that. You need to make the most of your single season. Instead of being upset that you are in a single season, you need to see it for the blessing that it is. You need to see it for the opportunity to travel the world, to take up hobbies, to explore your career path and try different things, because you have all of this time where you are allowed to be selfish. Because don't get me wrong, self-care and self-love is not necessarily selfish. In fact, when you're doing it right, it is selfless, because you love yourself to the brim, and then you continue to love yourself even more, and all of that extra love that is overflow, you're able to give it to other people. You're able to give it to your family members, your friends, and your partners without you feeling burned out. So you're able to show up as this amazing daughter, sister, wife, niece, aunt, all of those things, because you're able to be loving and warm towards other people, but because you're giving from the overflow, you're not burned out. However, that being said, although self-love and self-care are not selfish, there's something to be said for being in a period of your life where you're both, where you are doing the self-love and self-care thing, but you're also very selfish with your time and your attention, and you are consumed with yourself. Because it's during that time period that you learn, that you get the clarity on what it is that you want and need. And because that's the case, you're able, once you enter a season where you're able to add to your priorities list. So not that you no longer prioritize yourself, but you also have the priorities of, maybe your parents are getting older and you want to take care of them a little bit more, or you become a parent yourself and your kids now have to be added to the priorities list, or, I'm a dating coach. So you get married, you have a partner. When those things also become priorities too, you're going to have less time for yourself. You just will. So yeah, you're still doing the inner work and the healing, because like I said, those never end. You're growing your entire life, but you're not going to have as much time to spend on your growth, because you naturally have to give time and love and affection and attention to others. So your single season is something to be taken advantage of, not something to be loathing and upset by. Instead of praying for the right partner to come along, because I think that's a very valid prayer. But in addition to that prayer, you should also be asking God, while He is preparing you for the right partner, to help you make the most of that time as well. So, again, I didn't write notes before this episode, but this whole idea of he that findeth a wife, the first thing we talked about was the fact that you are already a wife. It's not a man comes along and chooses you and makes you a wife. You already are. And you need to have that mindset, and you need to have that confidence in knowing that you are worthy, right? Another person does not come through and validate you and give you worth. You validate yourself. The second thing we talked about is the fact that one of the things that makes you a wife is that you've done the work on yourself. You have taken the time to have a single season and make the most of it. The third thing is you are intentional and aware of how you fit into a larger picture that is beyond yourself. So I want to be very careful about this, because I absolutely hate the phrase, well, what do you bring to the table? If a man asks you that, you should run, because there is no right answer to that question. And it is being used as a way to humble you. Men who are truly good men don't ask. Y'all are about to make me cuss thinking about it. Don't ask BS like that, right? So just keep that in mind. At the same time, while you don't want to deal with a man who's asking you BS questions like, what do you bring to the table? For your own self, it is helpful to understand how you fit in with a partner's purpose, right? And that doesn't mean you change anything about yourself. And it doesn't mean that you have to let go of yourself or lose yourself in a relationship. So, for example, meeting my husband, when he and I got serious and, I could see that this was going towards a long-term relationship, towards marriage and all of that, I understood certain things, like I am definitely more of a dreamer than my husband is. I am also bolder than he is, as far as just like speaking my mind and speaking things into existence as well. And just having that confidence, right? So when I look at my husband and his goals and the things that he wants to do in life, which, I'm not going to put out there for the sake of his privacy, but when I look at those things, I see that it's not a matter of like, I bring something to the table because of an ability to cook or clean or having certain connections or anything like that. I see that having a stronger sense of optimism than he does, just naturally, means that I'm in his life to help inspire him a little bit, to help give him a little bit more hope. And I can see that when we're in situations where he is embarking on something new, a new season in his life, and I'm able to help encourage him a little bit more and help him push forward a little bit more. I can see that, sometimes when it comes to him negotiating things, the fact that like I have a certain boldness that he does not have, being able to encourage him to speak up for a little bit more, for him to ask for a little bit more. And these are things that are just naturally me. So I can, to use that phrase, I can bring those things to my husband's table without it causing me to burn out. Like, me naturally being myself, my personality, my character traits can be motivating to him, inspiring to him, and help him out. And this is what you want in a relationship. You want it to work both ways. There are certain things in my husband's personality and some of his character traits that when I was praying to God for what I wanted in a partner, I didn't even know to pray for those things. And now I look at those traits and I look at certain things about my husband. And I'm like, okay, like now I see why I'm with someone who does these things or says these types of things, because I see how that is making my life better, how that is improving me. And when you are matched with someone who is truly compatible with you, the two of you are able to make each other's lives better without it being a strain, without it causing burnout, without it causing resentment. So there's this understanding of, if you are a wife, you're a wife because you already know not only the type of partner that you need, but you also know the type of partner that you would be good for. You would be good for a man who XYZ, right? So having that understanding of yourself and having that confidence in yourself is important, because there are unhealthy men out there who will try to knock your confidence down, who will try to get you to settle. And it will become, if you're not on a firm foundation, it would become tempting and easy to be in relationships with someone who is not good for your mental health, not good for your peace, not good for your overall vision in life and purpose, because you allowed them to knock your confidence down to the point where you thought that you had to settle for them. So again, these are some thoughts on this idea of he that findeth a wife. You need to remember that you are a wife because you've done the work on yourself. You're a wife because you want to use marriage as a vehicle to fulfill purposes for both yourself and your partner. You're a wife because you understand how a partner can help you live your best life and how you can also help a partner live their best life. Those are the things that make you a wife. Nothing superficial, nothing surface level, and definitely not sitting around and waiting to be picked. So, let me know your thoughts. As always, feel free to either, if you're on YouTube, leave a comment in the comment section, or if you're on Apple, to leave a review on the review section. So not just a rating, although yes, please, a 5-star rating, but also a review, because actually I will tell you what, if you leave me a review, I will start to do drawings every week for a prize. It could be free coaching or free access to a course, a free call with me, something like that. So leave a review. Let me know what you think of the podcast. Let me know what you think of the rebrand, since we've gone from Confidently Cherished to Christianish now. And yeah, let me know what you got out of this episode. I will talk to you later. Love you so much. Bye.
This podcast is brought to you by Contessa Digital.